Hello, my name is Jeff McAndrew with Pica Energy, and thank you for joining this instructional video on how to utilize the REbus Beacon as an installer configuration tool. At this point, I am assuming that the REbus Beacon has been installed per the instructions that come with the device, and that the REbus Beacon is connected to the customer's internet. The first thing that you'll need to do in order to access the installer configuration tool is scroll to the right on the inverter LCD screen until you see the REbus Beacon page. From there, press the center button and press the down arrow until you highlight Installer Tool. At this time, press the center button, and this is going to put off a 45-minute Wi-Fi signal from the beacon. The next step is to go to your Wi-Fi settings on either the smartphone or laptop that you're using and select REbus Beacon as a Wi-Fi device the same way that you would a router. From there, it's going to prompt you to input a password. Each beacon has a unique password, and that password is located on the back of the beacon. Once you've connected to the beacon internet, you're going to open up your web browser and type in 10.10.10.10 as you can see on my screen. And this will take you to the installer configuration tool. So there are a number of things that you can do with the installer configuration tool. Most commonly, this tool is used to program the inverter, activate warranties, and set up utility compliance configurations and generate PDFs for those utility compliance configurations. So the first thing that I'm going to show you is how we configure the inverter. So if you click on the inverter screen, as I just have, and then you click on Energy Island Configuration, you'll see here that you have a number of options of things that you can configure and change. In order to make any changes, you have to have the inverter disabled, and from there you will submit, and at this time I can make any changes as needed. As an example for this video, I'm going to pretend as though we are configuring a system for Hawaii Rule 14H1. So after I have the inverter disabled, the first step is to enable zero export, assuming that we have already calibrated our CTs. Our current transformers are used to measure consumption of the house. So if your inverter is already showing a utility pole on the bottom right of the LCD screen at the main power flow screen, then you're all set. If not, you're going to want to trigger CT calibration and submit. And once you see the utility pole on the bottom right of the inverter power flow screen, then you'll know that you're ready to do zero export or self-supply. So assuming that your CTs are already calibrated, I'm going to move the inverter into zero export mode. Because this customer has a backup loads panel, I'm going to select Islanding Enabled. If this customer had an inverter installed and was just net metering, then we would likely choose Islanding Disabled. But in most cases, and in the case of this customer, we're going to select Islanding Enabled. If you were required to lock customers out of any certain system modes, this is where you would do it. So let's say hypothetically the utility does not allow this customer to sell power from the battery, do remote arbitrage, or charge the battery from the grid, which is what priority backup is used for. I would deselect those options. Another thing that I can do from the Beacon Installer tool is change my PLM channels. This is only relevant if you have multiple inverters installed at a single site. In that case, you would connect to the first inverter, and you would connect the beacon and change all those PLM channels to the PLM channel of the first inverter that you power on and all of its subsequent devices to channel 2. And then you would go to the second inverter and program that inverter and all of its subsequent devices on its own PLM channel. In the event that you were doing whole house backup, you would enable external transfer. In this case, we do not have an external transfer switch. We are just backing up a 50 amp protected loads panel, so we're going to leave this disabled. From here, I'll press submit, and in a moment you'll be able to see that zero export is enabled and the customer is locked out of the system modes that we adjusted. So as you can see, zero export is now enabled, our islanding is enabled. The customer has access to safety shutdown, grid tie, self-supply, and clean backup. And their external transfer switch is disabled because they're not using one. The next thing that I'd like to do with the beacon is configure my inverter for Hawaii Rule 14H1, which is used for Maui, Oahu, and the Big Island. I simply submit. And you can see now that my inverter is defaulted to Hawaii Rule 14H1. The two next steps that I would take in commissioning this system are activating the warranty by filling out these fields on the customer and installer information. And then lastly, from the Beacon Installer tool, you can download a PDF of the report to send to your utility. So in the case of Hawaii, I'm going to download this compliance PDF and I'm going to send it to HECO, MECO, or HELCO. Once you've downloaded the PDF, you are able to save it, email it, or print it. And this report will have the model number of the inverter, the RCP number, its firmware version, what islands it is in compliance with, and all of the configuration reports that are required by the utility. Lastly, before you exit the installer tool, you'll go to Energy Island configuration and make sure that your inverter is enabled. And always submit after you make a change. For now, that's all we have for you. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact Pika Technical Support or your area account manager. Thank you very much. Have a great day.